and great, was great. Good to see her. And Kurt?
So we got it,
We bought fully, no, we're told. We're in now.
you got it?
We're good. We're good.
So the phone is on?
Phone is on.
Do we have anybody on the phone?
Erin said she's gonna jump on in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Do you wanna wait for that, or do you wanna get started?
You're the president, and why penalize us that are on time for those that aren't?
Great.
We're all meeting.
I call to order. Anything besides Steve? No. Let's go to legislative matters, Steve.
Right, on the list, HB 14, substance abuse treatment, that passed out of committee today, or yesterday, just a heads up on that. The next two bills are both finished, and are getting ready to be enrolled. That's the health insurance right to shop and the autism bill.
So remember, the right to shop is only applies to PHP.
Yes. The inducement language, it says that those are not inducements. That applies to the market.
Right.
The mandate is only a
And you said that came out of committee, or?
It's done. It's
Oh.
passed all the way.
It's enrolled?
And the inducement, just remember, there's nothing in the law that prevents us from doing that. That's why they changed the inducement language.
From doing what? Sorry, remind me.
From giving some kind of incentive if somebody chooses to shop around for a better deal than what you can provide.
This bill's coming up, I mean, not that it matters, but it is coming up in a lot of other states, and on one of a Blue Cross call, everybody kind of likes the Utah approach. It has to go. The department bill, did you guys see that amendment on that clarifies the COBRA, the 102%? Yeah, everyone okay with that?
And Tina, you saw your language,
Mm-hmm.
which is
yeah.
our language. I mean, it clarifies for everybody that we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I think Tangi agreed with it too. I mean, she didn't have a problem.
Yeah, nobody had a problem with it.
You will know if, so I would assume it'd be in the department bill, but when I read it over, it's been a while. When I read it over the first time, I didn't see anything about this, corporate governance annual disclosure, which is an NAIC thing. I don't know if you all have seen that. Okay. That's fine, but I thought I had seen something that they were gonna add it. I haven't seen it.
You know that the departments, we got the talking points of the department on the website, but now we also have the point-by-point analysis of the legislation that's on the website that Brett prepares every year. So it's there. So, and then the other thing is, just to remind you at the outset, we're recording these meetings and they're all up on the website too. If you go into the website, you can click them on. If you miss one of these meetings, they're all there you can listen to the entire meeting there. They'll be there throughout the session, but then after the session, we'll only have Michael's poorly drafted minutes to rely on.
they're the worst.
They're the worst.
They're the worst.
I declare that out of order.
Oh, it's so accurate. I wish.
Kelly sneezed at 11:05 p.m.
I can't wait to see what Michael
Two
puts in.
people, yeah, no.
It has come in handy,
Good
God bless
conversation.
you. Trust me.
On more than one.
On more than one occasion. We've used the minutes.
Right. She keeps great minutes. Okay, sorry.
No.
I'm trying to put my training views.
Let's jump, telepsychiatric consultation access amendments. That bill passed out of committee yesterday. Has everyone had a chance to see the second sub? It has a delayed effective date. It talks a little bit about, I asked for some language on audit and review. It changes the cost sharing provisions on the out-of-network, that we pay it at our out-of-network benefit level. So if they do get referred to an out-of-network provider, it doesn't mean that we have to pay as if it was an in-network provider. Yeah.
And it basically involves the patient more than it did
Yeah,
originally.
and, right, and you can't bill for the same service more than
Right.
one. It still sucks, but, the suicide thing, I think it's the best we're gonna get.
We're not gonna get the bill changed. We changed the bill significantly. Steve's language has made the bill a much improved bill. He's worked really hard on it. We've worked really hard on it with Elison on it. The change from the original amendments that we were able to secure is this delayed effective date that says that right now we delayed it for a year, but Steve's also put language in that bill now that says that if you've got
If you don't have your network, if you get another 6 months,
right,
so you can go to July of 2019 if you tell the department you don't have the network.
which is really what we were attempting to do in the first place, you know, with it, when we ascertained that because of the suicide issue, which is a hot button right now on Capitol Hill, we weren't going to be able to stop the bill.
Well, Utah's got one of the highest teen rates.
Yeah.
in the country.
Exactly. I mean, Steve's earned his money on this one for his client, because I'll just tell you that the representative told him right out, if you oppose this bill, then you support suicide. Which is always a fun day on Capitol Hill, right?
I will, because look, right, we don't care, you know, it's good for the mortality table. It's ridiculous. I didn't mean that. Was it in the minutes?
I'm glad it's going. Some stuff doesn't get in.
Yeah, thank you. So that's out, and, it won't get heard on the floor until probably late next.
Thank you, Steve, for your hard work on that.
Yeah, it's good to have Kelly, you know, I like to have Kelly be the bad cop and me be the good cop, but, occasionally that role gets reversed. It did get reversed on that one.
I did.
Well,
as long as you're working together.
Yeah.
You're not both on one.
Yeah. Let's see here, prescription drug importation program. That bill, passed out of the House, by one vote on Thursday.
Are we at sub 2 now, rather
We're on
than?
the second sub, and I would say, it took out all of the transparency language. So it's just the importation program. The fee provisions are still the way that we had it subbed, so that if you choose to participate, you can be assessed a fee. But if you do not choose to participate, you won't be assessed a fee.
Sorry, participate in the
In
study.
the program.
Isn't it a study at this point?
So what it will do is, it's a study this year, but then, they will be funded, so the Arnold Foundation is some national group that's funding drug battles across the state, or across the country. They have agreed to basically underwrite the Department of Health application to the feds this year. So they will study it, but the bill says that they shall submit an application, I think by November of this year. So they're gonna be rushing to get something submitted. It will never get approved. And even if it gets, I don't know how much money we would or wouldn't save, but
While we're on that topic, has anyone heard any of the attack ads from pharma?
yes, on KSL,
Well, just on the radio, I've heard
Yeah.
a couple places. Your drug prices are that way because you're an insurance company. You
Exactly,
Start off
really.
with a lady calling to find out why it's so
insurance
high.
customer service.
Yeah,
So,
and then they say, yeah, the reason your drug costs so much is because your insurance company is responsible to negotiate, and they get all the discounts going to them. Yeah. That's-
So there, I will say, pharma did a full court press on the bill generally, and especially on the transparency piece, which to me should have told these guys, this is a good thing, right? Like, I mean, that, especially the advance notice part. But, so it's out. I certainly don't think that we should change our position to anything in the bill. Since we're not in it, I don't know if we need to oppose it in its current state. I've talked to the Senate sponsor about whether or not she plans to reintroduce the transparency piece, and she said she would be resisting that. And she said if it does come in, it would be, she wants to have the whole supply chain brought in, so PBM, on the rebates, everything else. And she's like, so I told her I think we'd be better off just running a clean bill than to have that discussion right now.
And that's what we want to watch, is the transparency piece, because Vickers is in the Senate, and if transparency comes back in, you can guarantee that he'll pull everybody in.
Well, so,
To kill the bill.
yeah, Dave Stewart and Frank talked on our side, and, that's, Pharma is still pushing Vickers to do that as a way to kill the whole bill. That, they don't want to have to go just fight that one straight up.
Right.
But we've just stayed kind of neutral on it.
Yeah.
What
They
we've
moved out the kids are gonna be dying in the streets if
Yeah.
we get our drugs
Yeah,
from Canada.
yeah, because
Cause all the Canadian kids are dying in the streets from their drugs.
that's, the Department of Health is all of a sudden going to be bringing in fentanyl, right? I mean, that's like, that was the line.
What?
Yeah,
Not really.
Norm Thurston, I should say, he was his own worst enemy on this bill, but, Pharma had all of these ridiculous things, and Norm on the floor started attacking lobbyists and then his colleagues that were listening to these, I mean, they're not great arguments, but he made no friends on the debate on this bill.
Norm
It was
is
really
not,
unfortunate.
Norm's your typical, I mean, with all due respect, he's your typical, nerd. I mean, he needs to.
Why'd you look at me when you
He
said
needs
all
to.
due respect?
He needs to.
With all due respect.
I didn't look at you.
You're an ass.
I didn't.
You're looking for confirmation from you.
I did. Yeah, I'm looking for confirmation. Thanks for helping. He needs to sleep with the book of, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, because he just doesn't know how to do it. And, I'll tell you how strong this whole concept is, which is good news for us. And that's that the majority leader spoke against this bill. He actually spoke against the bill, and it still came out at 39. So there's a lot of people are pretty fed up with pharma and the escalating costs. And if they weren't, this bill would have died.
Yeah.
And it probably will die, in my judgment. I think this bill has a real challenge in the Senate, but we'll see what happens.
Who's the majority leader?
Brad Wilson, I'll go over to Davis County.
A nice guy.
You all know, so I was just maybe off the record, I was back east, last weekend in Maryland and visiting family, and my sister's engagement. That whole area's changed a lot, so we're driving around and there are all these huge
Welcome, Russ.
pharma, bio drug, pharmaceutical bills. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
They're all in the,
Similar stuff.
they're in the, well, just, I don't know, I forget the names of these pharmaceutical,
Like your Amgen and stuff like that.
I mean, something like that.
Yeah.
But they're all over the DC.
So we're just on the drug importation bill right now, Russ?
Oh, thank you. The transparency piece came out,
There's a sub 3 out there, is that going in?
it's not, so, it will be the second sub, what the third sub did was it took out the transparency piece as well. And so what Norm did, he asked the majority leader said, I'm gonna run the third sub unless, because I don't like the transparency piece. And Norm said, well, I'll make the motion to take it out. So he adopted the second sub, which just had some technical changes. And then he made the motion to get rid of the transparency piece and then spent 5 minutes talking about his own motion, like speaking against his motion. And then.
Which was bizarre.
It was weird. And then they got pulled out. So it's the second sub is the bill that's over.
In fact, the majority leader made note of it on the floor. He says, I think this is a first. I've never experienced somebody making a motion on the floor and then speaking against their own motion.
Yeah.
Unusual motion.
It was weird. Let's see here, Digital Health Service Commission, that's not a committee, but, Oversight Committee, Kelly talked about this a couple of times. This is the one that, it's basically like a super, rules review committee. That passed out of, House Committee. It's a priority of House leadership, but, I've been told that Senate is not as likely to take it up.
It's pared down now considerably. I mean, they don't, before they really had overreach authority to do their own investigation. Now it's only what is brought before them. So if somebody comes and brings it before them and they want to take it up, they can take it up.
Is the governor still vowing to veto it, or wasn't that what
I
he
don't know,
was at?
yeah, I don't know on this same version, but I would imagine that, I mean, this one, the bill calling that the legislature can call themselves in a special session, you know.
So it's not gonna be veto proof, right? There's not, or is there enough support? for it?
I don't think it'll pass out of the Senate. I don't think it'll pass, I think it'll pass the House and the Senate.
And certainly, if it did for some reason pass the Senate, it's not veto. There's no.
They got it 2/3, right?
Yeah.
Is it, I'm just reading.
Steve's take on this is right, though. I think that this is House leadership and their little squabble with the governor about
Right.
this, trying to assert themselves. The Senate doesn't have that same concern.
There are 5 or 6 bills, I mean, so they have one that deals with the legislature being able to intervene as a matter of right into any dispute in the court. You know, which is,
I mean, just looking at the summary here.
Yeah.
In our blurb, is it unconstitutional? Because, you know, here's a legislative or task force or whatever, they're saying requires the governor upon recommendation from the committee to repeal administrative rules. Listen, how can a legislative body require the governor to do anything?
It's really questionable, but you've got, this is the opposition, you got Salt Lake, you've got the League of Cities and Towns against this, you've got, the counties
I don't
against
know.
this, you've got the
Yeah.
school boards against this,
That's what I'm
you have the
asking.
universities against this.
To say,
Well,
you
they
must,
can take action
we
to
don't-
pass the law, and then the governor has to abide by that law once it passes. But-
no, but this is like
Right,
another action.
Right.
and Idaho has a similar, at least on part of this, no administrative rule goes into effect in Idaho without the consent of the legislature. So the departments up there have to have all of their rules approved by the legislature.
Steve, I think that's a nice segue, we need cannabis now.
Can I just ask one question? And I kind of asked this before, but I don't think I really got a good understanding of what problem are they trying to solve with this?
That was the question, Russ, that was asked in committee. For instance, right now, we have 2 oversight committees for government oversight that have pretty broad reaching authority. You have the Legislative Audit Committee that can audit any government entity, including school boards, including cities and towns, including counties. And then you have John Dugal, who's a legislative auditor, who under his jurisdiction has really taken on the role of the auditor and gone out. And what really spearheaded a lot of this talk was the audit that he did on the leagues of cities and towns, which is kind of the reason that they felt that they could audit them is the league, the cities and towns join the leagues of the cities and towns, and they pay the taxpayers' money, the dues, in order to join them.
The league's an interlocal.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's an interlocal too, so that's where they, so anyway, that was a really terrible audit on those guys, and they found some stuff, and
I
so
thought it was flush.
now that's the excuse for saying, hey, look, we've gotta take more authority.
But the speaker wants to take away the governor, it's trying to diminish the governor's power. It's a term.
So being able to call themselves into session, certainly another critical piece of all of this.
Yeah. Which, just imagine that. I mean,
Would be a terrible idea.
separation, is a real issue here, in my estimation. We've got an executive that needs to control those things. We've got a legislature that can put them in check. But when they call themselves into session, they can bring up any issue they want. And so, is it I argue, and there's a lot that did in the committee, so are they becoming an executive themselves? Because they can start to say, this is what they're
That's
going
what
to
I
do.
wonder if I have a constitution.
Right. So just imagine if you were the governor and you said, we need to do this, you know, and you feel that you've got authority under the statute currently constituted, and your Speaker of the House says, you do that, we're calling a special session, we're gonna change the law. So,
Cannabis, you guys probably saw in the news last week that
Just point of order, are you going to Colorado, Kelly?
I am. Did you want me to bring some back for you?
I'll be there tomorrow.
Why you're driving?
Is anyone who travels
Flying.
to Colorado now suspect?
Kelly,
Yeah?
this is Mark. I'm happy to just throw it in the mail. I got you.
Thanks, Mark. Karen, are you on the line too? Okay, she said she was gonna join us, but I guess she hasn't joined us yet.
So this bill, still no position bill, and the part that gave them the right to try passed on last Friday, but then the part that would have allowed the state to provide the cannabis failed. And so they since re-voted on both bills, and it's moved forward. Healthcare debt collection, this was in committee yesterday. This deals with when a provider can assign a bill to collections. There's some squabbling going on between the UMA and the sponsor. I still don't see anything. We can do a position on this, so
We haven't taken,
we probably don't.
we heard that was heard yesterday in committee.
Do you think this, sorry, backing up a bit, do you think that, does the medical cannabis bill have a chance?
Yes, it does. They're trying to do as little as possible, but still thwart the initiative. So,
So it sounded like the big sticking was the state growing it,
yeah,
right?
so the state under this, that's the bill that failed, is that the state would grow and distribute. That's now passed. The marijuana folks have said that they have more than 30,000, over 30,
Signatures.
above the threshold that they need. And they still have a few months they have until April to,
Put it on the revenue.
let's say, to gather signatures, yeah, and then those have to be verified. And, you know, so typically, you know, a decent chunk will get thrown out. But,
The thing that makes us popular with the Republicans is the right to try. I mean, you've got a really narrow scope.
they'd be terminally ill.
Yeah.
I mean,
And a very narrow scope. And so with the whole concept that's been developing over the last few years, the right to try in these kind of cases, which deals with, Jonathan Johnson lobbied for that, if you remember that a few years back, the bill that he passed that allowed you to use experimental medicines when you're in this kind of situation. This is this piggybacks on that. And so I don't think that you'd see a cannabis bill pass the state of Utah, even if it goes on the ballot. But if you see a right to try like this, or something broader for that in illnesses to use it, I don't know. People are changing positions on that really quickly. So
I haven't been engaged, but I'm curious because I don't know what the church is or isn't doing on this one, but if I were the church, I would think that they're probably getting out of the way on this one so that they can come out against the initiative.
I agree.
Without looking heartless. Mental life options, that's assisted suicide. It's gonna get a hearing probably. It probably won't get a hearing until the last week of session.
Won't go anywhere.
It won't go anywhere.
Fourth year in a row that it will fail.
She's retiring,
Mm-hmm.
but, women's cancer screening we talked about last week, professional licensing revision. This bill, the senator so in addition to the giving the DOPL authority to review, it also it undoes a law from a couple of years ago that deals with when law enforcement can review the controlled substance abuse. I think it's a bill. And the Senate sponsor who passed the bill that says you have to have a warrant for law enforcement to look at the controlled substance abuse. He told me yesterday if this bill passes, it will not get a hearing in the Senate. So I don't we need to weigh in on that bill, but the docs, nurses, a whole bunch of people are kind of starting to line up against that. They may get out of the house, but 308, this is a mental health pilot for in schools. It has a $600,000 fiscal note, and
Surely to pass the legislature with that kind of fiscal note.
he got one last. So this is the second year he's got some funding. I think he got like $300,000 for rural one last year, and now he's doing schools. But, make it budget's big, so make it fun. 315 athletic trainers. Kelly, do you want to talk about this one?
Oh, yeah, we got this held in committee. Now, this is kind of where we are on this. This basically would make us, the way that they drafted the piece of legislation, this would mean that we would have to add them as we expand our panels. We would have to have athletic trainers on them. They're saying, no, you only have to consider having them on. You have to have good reasons. But the way they've written the legislation.
We also have to reimburse for
Right, and so we proposed this bill. They played a split maneuver on it. They pulled it from the business and labor and moved it into revenue and tax. We sits on revenue and tax. That was a move by Nancy Seacrest, who represents the athletic trainers, and her in is Francis Gibson, who's the minority whip. So we jumped on this, Steve and I jumped on this really early. We started talking to the members of the committee, and if all the committee members show up, we've got this bill killed by at least one vote and possibly two. The problem is they might not all show up because Green is well liked by the committee members in that committee, and so the ones that might oppose him might just not show up rather than have to vote openly. We've also talked to Representative Thrower, a member of that committee, and I think we've got him ready to make a motion to move it to Health and Human Services. Excuse me, Dunnigan's Business and Labor. No problem. Keep me on the straight and narrow, will you?
Listener, got your back.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
What did you say about the out of network?
So if you're, I don't know what chapter you guys are licensed under, but so this would apply on PPO if you're licensed as PPO. That so the current non-discrimination law say, right, if something's within your scope of practice, we can't refuse to reimburse for that, right? And then we also can't refuse to contract. There's an exemption for athletic trainers when they became licensed class of healthcare providers 5 years ago. We said, notwithstanding the fact that they are healthcare providers, we don't have to contract or reimburse them. And so this bill gets rid of that exemption. So,
but you're still, I mean, even out of network, you're still covering them, right?
we don't reimburse an athletic trainer who submits on an out.
I mean, if this was to pass, then we would have to cover them out of network as well, right?
That's what I was adding.
That's what I'm saying, that's what I was trying to catch.
With their scope of practice, so if they have a CPT code that's within their scope of practice that we reimburse on the physical therapy side, we would have to start reimbursing athletic trainers for that. think there are a few that where we would pay.
So this is the call that we need to make on this legislation. If we could guarantee that everybody was going to be in the room, we could leave it in revenue and tax and guarantee it's killed. But we can't guarantee that. So the question that we've been asking ourselves and debating is, do we get Frower to make a motion to move it to business and labor, where it will get a late hearing if it gets a hearing at all, and that it'll be killed.
To just where that.
So that's what we're talking, you know.
There are some of the committee that the problem with doing that, right, is that the people that oppose it in committee would rather just kill it. So there are about half of them that say, well, I'd rather kill it than send it back to rules or send it to another committee.
Including the chairman.
Yeah,
That's the chairman's position.
and but I guess I would say that it's the fact that it's a Republican on the committee. I think we're better off having someone make a motion to send it to a different committee than we are to ask them to vote straight up against the bill.
The rules have changed. It used to be that you could only send these kinds of legislation back to the Rules Committee for assessment. The rules have changed. Now a committee can assign a bill to another committee. The reason we don't want to send it back to Rules is because of Gibson. Will they just shift it to another committee outside of Health and Human Services? So Steve and I talked about this. We agreed that we would reach out to Dunnigan, which we did, ask him if he feels comfortable in having it come before his committee again. He said he does feel comfortable with it. Then we lobbied everybody on the committee, and we've said, look, if a motion was made to refer to business and labor, would you be in support of that motion? And the answer is yes. So we talked last night. I'm inclined to think the same way Steve does. We could take our chances and see whether we kill it in committee, but if everybody doesn't show up, it goes to the floor. 75 representatives are a hell of a lot harder to lobby than 12. And so,
Remind me, I may have missed it, so if it passes the way it reads now, a PPO would have to contract with at least a certain number of athletic trainers.
Yeah, if your PT network was closed, you wouldn't have to open it up for them. But if you were contracted, if it was open, you couldn't discriminate against athletic trainers. So if one applied and was willing to come in under your terms, then you'd have to open them. If you had an open network.
So the other thing we just want the board to think about, don't have to make the decision right now.
Not the statute,
on this,
but let's keep it. It doesn't require you to contract with anybody who applies, right? It says you have,
Sufficient.
yeah, right, it's got the language, yeah.
Sufficient
So,
number.
but if you were to open it up, then and one were to apply, you couldn't say, well, no, we're not gonna let them. You could give another reason, right, that it could not be because, for the sake of it being an athletic trainer.
The other thing I just bring to the attention of the board that we'd like you to consider, just think about it. I don't know where the various companies might be on this, but the biggest argument that Representative Green has used on this is discrimination. We're discriminating against a class, one class. Of course, we pointed out that there are other classes out there, such as homeopathic physicians, that are not represented under the law. We've also pointed out, and this is where our legislative wrap-ups that we have served us. We went back and did the research on the wrap-ups. In 2006, they presented a bill to license themselves, the athletic trainers. During that testimony, which is recorded, they said, "Oh, this isn't about licensing. This isn't about being covered by insurance. This is simply about licensing. We have no interest in being on insurance, and you don't have to worry about that." Now the same people, some of the same people that were there, were at the table saying, we want to be reimbursed by insurance. So to play a little offense, which I always enjoyed playing over defense, going forward, what if we presented a piece of legislation that took this out of the PPO code entirely, this whole section that governs what providers have to be included in on our path.
We've got to get rid of
The
it.
same way HMOs are currently. Our counter to their argument has been, and I sent notes into every single individual on the committee, and I've talked to most of them about it, is if you really want to talk about discrimination, let's talk about discrimination. Here's two different types of carriers that are competing for in the same marketplace for the same customers, and one has this set of rules, and the other has this set of rules. And by the way, the group that has that set of rules represents at least 50% of the marketplace. And they don't have any of these rules. And so you come over here and you say, oh, but these guys over here, we want to put yet another provider classification in that you have to have on your map. So I think we play a little offense. Now, I don't know how the biggest HMO in the state is going to feel about that, but so a little pushback.
Well, what do they say?
But they're
So I would
exempt
say-
anyway, right?
They're exempt anyway. I've talked to Kristen McCullough, their legal counsel, and to Eliana, and they have both said we would support getting rid of 617 and 618. They want to get rid of both, but they're not going to actively support it. But they say we support
The concept.
your efforts to do that. And that's where they put that.
They put Kelly support concept on there.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, which if I were them, I don't expect them to do any more than that, but they right, I mean, I think that's, Eliana has told, she's not lobbying on this bill, but she has, we've been around, she has been in conversations with us on the committee that even though this doesn't apply to us, we oppose it. So,
well, with
that's
it coming together more, they ought to be a little worried because at some point, you know what I mean, they may say, let's,
Take them out
what's
of
good for the goose, let's pull it over here, right?
Well, I think eventually, especially if the guarantee is right, I mean, you're gonna start.
Right,
looking
that's what
on
I'm saying, that it's getting more and more
Reserve
blended,
Yeah.
so they ought to be a little nervous that it's gonna come around.
That's what Idaho did. I mean, Idaho only has one license class. They don't treat each other. It's different, and I think eventually Utah's gonna get it.
Yeah.
And that's where if Dunnigan had his brothers, we'd be there now. I mean, that's where he wants it to go. So after the session, we were thinking about meeting with Representative Dunnigan and exploring this idea and finding out who he would recommend carrying that legislation. It'd be nice to play a little offense. The only downside I see to it would be if it didn't pass. That's the only downside. But the upside to it is that we walk away, even if it didn't pass, with a whole lot of people being better educated on the two different classifications. That's been the biggest problem with the business labor, is to try to bring them up to speed. We've worked really hard on that, to bring them up to speed about all the nuances. And even now, they're saying, why are we dealing with this? Representative Quinn made the funniest remark to me. He said, Kelly, just talk to me about numbers. I'm business. I'm on revenue and tax. I just want to be talked about regarding numbers. Don't bother me with any of the rest of that stuff.
So when you talked to Green and told him about the other providers, like the homeopaths, or what, I mean, what did he say?
Where he goes is, well, you don't cover those services, right? Or they're not licensed as a healthcare provider. And so I would say, well, in some cases that's, but like we cover acupuncture on plan, and they're not licensed as a healthcare provider, and so when we discriminate there, on which ones we provide coverage to, I don't know what relationship he has with Nancy, but he is just saying, it's not fair. The discrimination is just not fair against them. These are qualified people. They have master's degrees, yada, yada, yada. He has not been willing to back off on it.
So gracious to me, and I met with him for 45 minutes, gracious to me,
Gracious but unmovable.
absolutely.
So you want the board to buy off on trying to move it to business and labor? Is that issue one?
Sure, yeah. Do we
Any
need to make a motion?
discussion or concern? Anyone on the phone have any questions? So, hearing no opposition, I'll assume it's unanimous unless somebody indicates to the contrary. So I think you've got your guidance statement, Kelly.
Let's jump down to 336, just quickly, because this one is new. This is the bill, it passed last year about, where someone could force someone into substance use treatment. And
This is
366.
Yes. We asked for that, we asked for some language just clarifying, right, that insurance doesn't need to, right, that we don't have to pay for it if we decide it's not medically necessary. It changes, I don't know who's asking for it, but it changes it from a financial guarantee to a binding commitment to pay. So the person that makes that, that files that court action has to say, so I don't know if there's a difference between a financial guarantee and a binding commitment to pay, but wanted to point that out. HB 394.
Does that one go into when it's medically necessary at all?
366.
Yeah.
I think we have something that says like it doesn't, that an insurer is not required to pay under this section or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the language is, but we did that last year and it's not changed.
Yeah, he's not changing that section.
Oh,
That section
okay.
is still in the
Okay, that's
language in the bill.
That's not
If you pull the bill up, you can see that language in that, with the language we put last year.
Okay.
So something similar, the similar boilerplate language we use, that nothing in this act requires health insurance.
I'll look at it and cover the.
I mean,
360.
while that's getting pulled up,
I read it down towards the lower end of it.
That insurance doesn't have.
Yeah, something that says, nothing in this section, all the contractual relationships.
Right,
There
stop,
was,
go back up
go back,
a little bit, right, keep going.
contract between health insurers and insured individuals, 96 and 97. You're not changing that, and we'll monitor this. We have to watch, you know, when we got that kind of language, the challenge you have is you have to monitor it carefully, because at any level, they can pull that language out. And they've done that.
remember.
A couple of different times they've done that. In fact, we picked one up on the last night of legislative session one time, they did. We got it.
Can't imagine Representative Christensen engaging in behavior like
Yeah,
that.
he did never. No, he would never do that.
You know.
Literally.
You know, Doug.
HB 394, health insurance exchange amendment. This one, it's, I don't know, we may want to take a motion to support it. It says that if an insurer or a provider relies on information in the CHI, that you cannot be held, and you know, something happens, you can't be held liable. I think that it's probably a good bill. I haven't been asked to support it, but maybe worth supporting.
What do you think, Doug?
So I'm pretty sure that this is sponsored by the chief, because some people have said I can't use it because I'm worried about liability. For example, Select Health. So I think that's a response to that concern. So I don't see any downside to object to.
Yeah.
I think you're right, we should support it.
Okay, I'd make that motion.
Discussion, comments? I think you've got unanimous support.
Okay. Do you want to let Don know?
Yep, I'll let them know.
HB 399 is a bill you guys should look at. I've heard that the retail pharmacists don't like this, so it may die on its own. But it requires any prescription that is an opioid prescription that has a very specific warning label. It also requires that the pharmacist give out a pamphlet about the warnings of opioids. Our PBM hasn't talked to us yet about it, but I have heard from, Express Scripts that their warning label is different than the one that there is on this, and so they, have some problems with the bill. So I guess we want to talk to PBMs. HB 405. This is an interesting bill. It, for nonprofit hospitals that don't pay taxes, it requires an annual justification that their community benefit exceeds the amount they would pay in taxes. Everyone should take a look at this. I think we should hold this for a week. I don't see that this is something that we'll take a position on this session. It's a good
Is it going anywhere?
I love the bill. I absolutely love it. But as Steve and I talked, I agree with him. It's not something that we should just go out and poke the 800-pound gorilla with.
Well, it's University of Utah too. And they're
nonprofit. Yeah, so it's got, they're a nonprofit hospital.
Does it, I mean, is there,
Well, so I haven't talked, I wanted to stay as clear, as far away from this. I remember I brought it up to you guys probably 2 weeks ago that this was coming out. And, but I have not said a word to the sponsor. He does represent Riverton, right, which has the Riverton hospitals out there. And so I could see Riverton City saying, look, we've got this huge tax exempt, Shunt Island in our city. So that might be the reason he's running it. There could be the San Pay stuff. But I have not wanted to touch it. And I'm not planning to, and I don't think Kelly should as well. I mean, I think over interim, we should have some conversations with them. But I will not be at this hearing. When they get the hearing, I'm not going to be anywhere near it.
If you know the Riverton Hospital, there's a lot of land right adjacent to it. I don't know who owns that property, but I think probably,
it could be.
Right, that they're not paying on it.
Right, and I think that's what he might be doing. But again, I think we risk, he's proven on his advice to the board, what we risk is will this bill pass this session? Zero chance. So do we really want to be out engaged and have them blame us for it? Because that's what they'll do. They'll come back and say, the higher companies are supporting this. So.
But if he wants to talk about it during the interim, I think that, I think it's worth having a conversation about.
We can bring in one of our board members.
Where's the teeth in that when they evaluate this, because it's an interesting way to play some financial games of here's where the money came in and here's where it went out, kind of a thing. And here's how much charity we gave, but where that money actually came into them. So to me, I'm just wondering what would the teeth be that actually demonstrates it was their money.
That would be a good question to ask him when we bring him in to the board.
But don't they, on their, I don't know enough about this, but on their tax return, isn't there a line, charitable?
Yeah.
There is.
Charitable care or whatever.
But there's lots of interesting ways you can play with it. You could chase somebody and it's only that uncollectible debt and suddenly it's charity.
Yeah, so they actually talked about this lower down.
Well, they try to collect really hard, and then when
collectively took everything they had, but they still owe this money. And
so right there,
they file bankruptcy and we can't collect.
So this is how they deal with
it. Where the real teeth of the.
Right here, the unreimbursed, and they use it based on Medicaid rates. It's an interesting.
It should say uncollectible, not unreimbursed.
Yeah.
That's a more accurate.
I just think there's a lot of ways to play that game, and I think, if you're smart, you're doing it, and they're smart, right?
They're smart.
The following may not be value of volunteer community service. Difference between standard and actual reimbursement. I don't know. They're after something here. Right? They're after properties, what they want is,
Oh,
he
yeah.
wants properties.
Oh, yeah. And again, I think when we get down to this, you'll find that he represents Riverton City. They've probably come to him and said, hey, we're tired of this. I mean, there's a lot. We've all talked about this. We all know it. So take a good look at the bill, review it, and let's get prepared to maybe bring him in and talk further.
After the session.
But this goes back to what all of us have witnessed over the years, and that's that for a company that claims that they're a nonprofit company, they sure generate a hell of a lot of revenue, okay? And so I think if they're asking the question, couldn't they afford to pay property tax? Or demonstrate that they're giving charity care.
HGR 12, this is a kind of spat between the AG's office and the legislature. The legislature's trying to force the Attorney General to sue opioid manufacturers. The AG is, we're involved in an investigation with a number of other states, so we're not ready to sue. The legislature can't force the Attorney General to sue, but this is this is Mike McKell. He's interested in running for that seat at some point if it were to ever open up, and it's a way to tweak the AG. I don't see it's a bill for us, but we just need to put it up.
So are we, proponents of this then?
Yeah.
Or do we just not?
I haven't been doing anything. I have the board, if you want.
Support concept.
You guys want to make a motion? Yeah.
No, I just want to get your thoughts on whether we should be, whether we plan to be. But even if it's just a resolution, right? So it doesn't really require them to sue. It's a shot over the bow of the opioid companies to say, you got to stop the BS marketing that you do.
Yeah.
And that's, they are starting to, obviously, but any of that helps everybody.
Yeah.
If the board wants to support this concept, I think we're fine in supporting the concept.
I don't know if it's worth spending your resources, your time
Well,
to do
when we
so.
support
I'm
the
just wondering-
concept, I'll just tell Kel that, we like the direction of it, but I wouldn't actively go on and speak for it. Resolutions I think we ought to do away with resolutions. They're just a waste of time and resources, staff and paper. Because they amount to nothing, but
That's the message.
But the message, you're right, Russ, about one thing. I mean, we all know that the opioid companies have made a hell of a lot of money, and knowing, just like the cigarette companies, that they're a problem in advance, they kept selling it.
Well, they said it wasn't addictive, when it was fully addictive, right?
And when they have data, internal data.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Okay, so support and concept, anyone object? That's good.
Workers' comp coordination of benefits, that's still circled last time.
Okay, and what we've talked about it, I talked to the labor commissioner about this, and what Jason told me was nobody likes it because of Steve's language, that says they have to notify us. And so this bill may die. I've educated the members of the Health and Human Service Committee on this, and I've talked at House side, and I'm working right now on, the board gave me permission to do this on the,
This is the workers' comp stuff.
right, on the business and labor. So both of them I've worked with, and I'll finish up that so that they're aware of this. Remember, we put a 3-year, UHIA specifically put in a 3-year clause in this legislation to sunset, specifically. And now it's at that point, and I know there's a lot of cynicism by some members of the board that was just wasted paper, but now you're seeing it could come to fruition. I do not believe this bill's going to pass. She wants it to pass, but no one else does, including the work that we did this summer, which I didn't know whether that was going to bear any fruit or not, but obviously they're a little concerned about our argument where the great thing about having these meetings recorded is they're a little concerned about our argument that, wait, the express purpose of this legislation was to take workers out of the mix, and only a third of the workers are out of the mix. So if you were to flip this legislation and make worker compensation insurers pay it first, every worker would be out of the mix. And then we would reimburse you 6% if we were found to be liable. And that is given the workers' the largest carrier, workers' compensation fund, some real heartburn. That came from Jason. Jason told me, he said, we've heard that argument about flipping it, you're right.
The other thing is, even if it were flipped though, we would still need the language saying that we can get parking because.
They still could
Right.
just
Then
go
they could
say it's
settle.
not.
Yeah.
Right. That language wouldn't go away. You're absolutely right. We would want that language.
We need it either way.
Either way. But we're not out advocating that they flip it either way, except to say, if you move forward with it, that's going to be our argument. And we have documentation where that was the express purpose. You remember that, right? Because you were in that meeting. That was the express purpose of the sponsor for the justification of passage of the legislation.
So and Dunnigan, I would say is the House sponsored that bill. Just as an informational.
I should put that on there.
Workers' comp healthcare, we talked about this, it's going to 77%. Already out of network for them. I think that's now half, yeah.
I would expect Intermountain to be totally against.
Oh, no, they're not at all.
Which bill's that?
Really?
Yeah, this is 64. Oh, yeah, no, they love, it's based on bill charges. And it's lower than,
That's down to their discount level anyway, but everybody else, I mean, their charge masters are higher, but it seems like it puts them at an uneven kill.
so I don't know if they're planning on raising their bill charges or what, but they're working, and on the medical side, their hammer's been up to the legislature on more than one occasion, talking to the Dunnigan saying, we want a deal, and we'll be close to our discount on even on the medical side, but we want it off the bill charges. And on the workers' comp folks have agreed to it, and I haven't talked to Dunnigan in about a week about this on the medical side, but that's what they're saying is we're okay with that's interesting. But if I were them, their bill charges are lower right now, right?
Right, so that's my
But if
point.
you're gonna start raising them, 8 to 10%, they could catch up.
Did you say it goes to 70?
It'll be 77%.
This is the original, so maybe there's an amendment.
There's a sub that's out. I don't know if it's been adopted yet, but it's out.
Doesn't look like it has been there. Wait, let's go up the other room. Yeah, there, yeah, first step.
I mean, you might have, I know, as you know.
So what it
No,
does
I
is
can
it sets up a
find
study. There's a study that will happen, and then it goes down to 70%. So the first half is about study. Right there. Yeah, and then down below, that's where it changes from 5 to 77. And then it has it still has a sunset, but I think they extended out to 2023.
Look that over, see
But
if you've
didn't
got
it
any
say
concerns.
not adopted? Didn't that?
It hasn't been adopted yet, but it's going to be adopted.
Oh.
Should we talk about 135?
Yeah, sure. This is the discretionary clause bill. Kelly Kelly had a valiant effort in committee to get this killed, and it passed out unanimously.
Tells you my effectiveness. How many people are against this bill?
Yeah.
Nobody else? I'm the only one?
The commissioner is supporting the bill, medical assistance. A lot of people are supporting the bill. What we've heard, and has not been denied by the real sponsor, maybe not the sponsor listed here, but by the real sponsor, Brian King, is that health insurers are likely to come out in the House. Yeah, we still have to work it.
We have to work it, but that's what we
but it's gonna apply to the life carriers, but not the health carriers.
Because that's where it primarily has.
Hold it! Yeah.
That's where they.
Talk about discrimination.
John. That's primarily where they say they're.
Where did this happen?
We don't like the legislation at all.
I think we still oppose the bill, right? I mean,
Yeah, we're not.
Not only for your purposes.
Yeah. We don't like the legislation at all, but he's gonna pull out health, he said.
Truth be told, Kelly suggested this language, John.
What's that?
Kelly suggested this language.
Yeah.
What he said is that, I mean, he goes, well, Select Health isn't a problem, but there's no way that I can only accept Select. And so, and so I'm trying to find, guys, I want to be fair to.
Off the record, but, then you get the Guarantee Association. Oh, and then, this is not.
No.
This is right.
This is, yeah. I've thought a lot about this legislation since I testified on it, and we've got some angles on it. I mean, this to me is no different than, is health insurance good public policy? Government limits its liability. We've got workers' compensation funds to limit their liability. Shouldn't insurance companies be able to limit their liability? And this doesn't even limit their liability. What it says is that you've got to have a pretty convincing argument before the courts to overrule the contract as interpreted by those people that wrote it. Now, the trouble we have on this legislation isn't anything except for the fact that the commissioner is saying this is good public policy.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard when the commissioner is on one side representing consumers and we're on the other side saying, worry about it.
Is he saying that just for life insurance?
No,
No,
that's not his. Yeah, if the commissioner had his way, it would be all the way. I just think that I think that Select and King made it. I think that's really.
The reason that happens, John, is this. I mean, this is just.
No, I read the
not
case.
For the,
In his
not,
case, that
no,
went to the 10th Circuit.
Yeah,
It was a
not-
whole bunch. It was a
not-
life insurance
yeah,
case.
not
But
just
it
the
is
10th Circuit.
That life one?
Yeah, it's meant like.
This is just hard politics, and that's why Dave Leo isn't here, okay? Because he hates this kind of stuff. But pull back the
We've had
curtain.
conversations.
The bottom line is, he knows that Select Health gives a lot of money to legislators, a lot of money for the campaign. It's a political year. He knows that they have the influence with individuals on that committee, whatever the committee is, that if he takes it before the committee, they'll lose the legislation.
I think I understand that, but the problem I think UHIA has is that if they limit it to life insurance now, it's the camel nose under the tent.
I still think those
Next year, it's just gonna happen.
I totally plan on going before the committee yet again, regardless of the amendments they make, and say we oppose the legislation. We don't think it's good public policy. But I just have to tell you, the reality is, just the commissioner's gonna speak for it, UMA's gonna speak for it, and it'll be, the health insurers oppose it, all the rest of it.
Is there a hearing?
It's still in the Senate. It passed out of the Senate, but it's on the Senate board, I think, still.
Is it on the third, it was on the Senate too, so it could have
Maybe
passed
we
off
can get
late
that
last
drug
night.
company guy to come in and.
Oh my God.
Please, Scott.
Maybe
Sorry.
Yeah, we can listen to Kelly.
Yeah.
We're good, is that you?
I know that was
Jessica.
Dr. Zender, the new guy who took She's out.
You can listen to that.
Well, the other thing is,
how does PNC contract read? Do they allow the reservation of discretion?
I have no idea.
I don't, but that.
My thought is if you included that in there and just made it for all contracts, then you'd have more people to oppose it.
Yeah,
So I don't know if
Well-
that's helpful or not.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The other thing, I don't know if anyone from Anthem is on the line, but where King has said he's trying to go, he's like, the worst people are Anthem, and then Mark, he must have had a case against you because he said Aetna.
He
And,
just got into the
oh,
hay.
yeah.
He was too
Well, and I'm like, well, Anthem doesn't write business in Utah, so, right, I mean, this only applies to the
Well,
fully
he came
insured
from
ERISA plan.
California, right? Have you seen some of his bar articles where he's always spouting off how the law works in California?
Yeah, I mean, he's a
And Ryan's retort, you know, where you can retort and saying, well, why in the hell don't you move back there?
And so I'm like, if you're trying to go after Anthem, this bill will not do anything to help you with Anthem,
Right.
because their only business in this state is not insured in it, right? I mean, it's group plans that are not fully insured in this state, so, and he doesn't. He doesn't want to get into the intricacies of how the blues work or of how ERISA works, even though he practices in that area.
But Anthem probably has 50,000 members.
Oh, Aetna, yeah, but,
No, I'm talking Anthem.
oh, yeah, we probably administer,
Yeah.
yeah, but they wouldn't be
Yeah,
subject
they're
to our law,
right, right.
So, and he does
That's
not
why
understand.
going after Anthem is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a strange twist.
And now we turn to the last bill.
Yeah, this is, SB 181, infertility coverage, it's got a new title, but it's the same. So what this bill, it was originally, you guys remember, we had the, $4,000 adoption indemnity benefit about 5 years ago. We said, that a health insurer was allowed to apply that to an infertility treatment if we wanted to. None of us do. And so she proposed a mandate. Yesterday in committee, she amended the bill so that it's a 3-year pilot program where PHP will provide the $4,000 indemnity benefit, and then, and so they can find out the cost. PHP is estimating that it'll cost them about $400,000 a year. Most of that, they said, is in increased childbirth costs, not on the $4,000 costs. The other thing is, and Kelly brought it, this is being funded out of PHP's reserves. And that's my biggest concern about the bill.
Wow.
And
Has
so
the department weighed in on that at all?
the department didn't, and PHP says they're fine with that.
I guess there's that.
Well, we made it, first of all, this is when your executive director earns his money, because the room was full of pregnant women and the most beautiful little children you've ever seen in your life, all of which accompanied them on the witness dais. The children came up the witness dais, and you could just see the senators just melt. So what we said about the piece of legislation was a couple of different things real quickly. We said, look, this is yet another unfunded mandate, but it differs from what you've done in the past before she amended the bill. It differs what you've done in the past because you're going to be responsible for this, okay? What I've discovered with Tangi is this, how this works. I went back and talked to Tangi after our last conversation. If the legislature passes a benefit outside the essential service package, and this is clearly outside the essential service package, then because the state of Utah does not have a federal exchange, we send our bill directly to Health and Human Services, of which then they recover that money from the state of Utah. They bill the state of Utah, and then they send it to us. They reimburse us. That's how we go about getting the reimbursement. So we told them, contrary to what's happened in the past, where you can simply hear these compelling human interest stories, pass legislation, and then shift the burden, the financial responsibility onto small insurers and a small business. Not small insurers, small business. In this case, it's totally different. You're going to bear it. And then we gave them some oversight, some financial information based on data, which says this bill minimum would cost about $26 million if you have a 10% infertility rate, which the U.S. Health and Human Services Department says exists, and that's only the 30% that they regulate. And so when they shifted it and made it a pilot program, Senator Bramble says, I'm voting for this because we want the hard data to see what this may cost. But it doesn't matter what it costs, they're going to have to bear the costs going forward. It's a 3-year pilot. We've got some time to take a look at it, but
The other thing we told Luz, as Kenia, is that she should just do a $6,000 or $4,000 tax credit, right? I mean, if she wants to do it that way, rather than, if the state's truly going to be picking it up, which we think, then just have the negative tax credit.
she told me after that she was willing to do that. We met with her ahead of time. In fact, she was planning on running this bill as a mandate. Then we met with her. Steve and I met with her, and we said, well, we're going to oppose that. And she said, well, what if I made it a pilot program? And we said, well, make it a pilot program for PHP. We're not going to support that, but we'll at least be neutral on the bill. And that's how we presented it the other day, that we were neutral on the bill because it was a pilot program for PHP. But rest assured, this is the same. It's a camel's nose in a tent, and you can really see this legislation if the numbers present. Although I want to share with you that she did say yesterday that she liked the idea of making it a tax credit. That was Steve's idea.
We have costs beyond that, though. And I'll just share an example. We have
Childbirth cost.
well, even beyond that, because we have a group member that they decide they should be repopulating by themselves, and they have infertility issues, and so they take infertility drugs. But every child that they have is going to be and has been in ICU for 3 months.
Wow.
And a host of other issues that are going on. And so, and it's because they're related, not directly, but somewhat. And so, $300,000 for every time they decide they're going to take infertility, right? So we're not just, so even if we don't pay for the infertility, we're paying for the childbirth, but then we're paying all those other costs.
Yeah.
So does the data support that there's higher ICU, or is that unique to this?
I would like to see that, but my guess would be, I would bet there's some correlation there, but I don't know if that's been studied to say it's this amount. But I see more cost beyond that just because we've experienced it, and we know that they're actually trying to take infertility now.
Chet's
Again.
fiscal analysis shows that there's higher multiples, higher rates of multiples, and higher rates of preterm births, so that they are more costly.
And that data, we would have to submit to Health and Human Services, and then they would analyze it and tell us what they're going to reimburse. So I mean, this is different than the mandates we passed in the past. And the other thing we need to do, I've sent a letter to the fiscal analyst, but I'm going to request a meeting with fiscal analysts after the legislative session to sit down and walk them through these issues. Because they've lost Kathy DuPont, which is really, you were asking about the Guarantee Association. That's really, I mean, the new gentleman that's over that, I mean, he's working hard. He's new, and he's trying to get the legislation right, and he's really been slow, as anyone would be when you're going into that situation. And the same in the fiscal analyst office. There's a lot of new people in the fiscal analyst office. We need to educate them on what the law is. Because none of these bills that are advocating new mandates have even the smallest little notation that the state may be obligated to pay for these funds, pay for these benefits through increased financial obligations.
Kelly, if we're gonna talk about bills to run next year, and I don't wanna hold it too much time, but we should have a bill that PHP cannot fund mandates out of their surplus. I think that's, it's a really bad precedent to set.
Well, and where I think we can, Todd Losser of the Public Employee Association, we ought to go to him. Because why in the hell aren't they in there saying that money that they're putting in for increased premiums so that they can have that, why isn't he there saying, look, this is concerning us, you're charging us higher premiums, that could go into public employee salaries, and you're putting it over here so you can run all these pilot programs.
Yeah, and I mean, reserves, the purpose of reserves is not to run pilot programs.
Right.
The purpose of reserves is in case, to have a buffer to pay claims. And it is bad policy.
Yeah.
It's bad policy, and Chet should
run
not
reserves
be.
down, why?
Yeah, Chet should not be allowing that to happen. I mean, it's typical.
Crazy.
It's typical Chet, right? I mean,
Typical.
but it's really bad policy.
And he doesn't,
Why doesn't
He's not-
someone talk to the
because
commissioner's office and say,
yeah.
Well, they don't, I mean.
well, I know they don't, I know, but still,
Yeah.
what would you do with any other insurance company trying something like that? I mean,
When we said that on the record yesterday, we said, you listen to the testimony, we said, as private insurers, this isn't the way to run an insurance company. This is not the way to do it. And we would support it. But again, you have an executive director there that just is not going to stand in front of legislators. Not going to stand in front of them. I mean, at least Lynn Baker, to Lynn's credit, would have stood up and said, no, if you want to do this, you fund it. They're not only funding this new program like that, but they're funding autism like that. So how much burden is that placing on their surpluses? Which
oh, they did that with the autism?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't realize that, but that's how they've been funding. And apparently it's become an issue because when it switched from they had an autism mandate before we did as a pilot, and then when the step, but they continue to fund it out of their reserves instead of, yeah.
So I like that bill too. I think that's good public policy too. And we should shop.
Well, it makes it so they can't do the pilot programs easy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and they shouldn't, if they're gonna pay for it, they should pay for it.
Because see, the other thing I don't trust, and then, just to be honest, maybe this is showing my cynicism over the years. I have zero confidence when those numbers come out from PHP that those are the actual numbers. I'm not saying that they're distorting them. It's just that they lower everything. The cost of the fiscal notes, they're low. They're low. And that's because what happens is legislators put pressure on PHP. And PHP is funded by legislators, and so it's not the ceiling of the benefit, it's the floor of the benefit. And I just think that the more funding, the more pilot programs that they can fund that way, the more leverage they have to say the insurance industry is embellishing the costs, and it really won't cost that much. On mandates such as infertility, that may or may not matter. I mean, we have to test that and challenge that and see whether it works the way ACA envisions it will work. Or is high confidence in the federal government in this room, so we don't know whether, but on the surface, there's a risk there, and I think that is a chilling effect for legislators not knowing. So
Rumors, I would just say, John, on the guarantee, did I email?
You did, thank you.
Okay, about the governor too?
No.
Okay, so, Jim Pinkerton, our actuary, who sits on the Guarantee Association board, Ted Lewis mentioned to him that the governor was going to be putting a lot of pressure on this bill, and I was like, this happened, he told me this earlier in the week, that the governor is going to weigh in on Guarantee Association. But sure enough, he has requested a meeting with Representative Dunnigan to talk about this bill. So I don't know if the ACLI or some of the life carriers are big supporters of NGA or RGA or something, but
NGA?
the National Governors Association. That would be my guess, because I don't know why. I don't think that Ted could get the governor to weigh in like this. But so
ACLI, I was aware of it.
yeah. So the governor has asked for a meeting about the bill.
Well, just with Dunnigan.
50-50 maybe back in play.
Well, I mean, if that's what it is, then I think what Jim would say, well, then you know, why don't you need to get Intermountain to support that then, right? I mean, because I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, you still got a big block out there,
I would just say,
right?
right, I mean, yeah,
Using the curling term, you still got a big stone out there
Yeah.
blocking.
yeah.
Well, and this could be a major game changer if the governor weighs in one way or another, because it takes the commissioner out of the framework. The commissioner has been a driving force behind this, and if the governor weighs in and says no,
Then the commissioner will also oppose it.
Right.
So it changes it, totally.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
Thanks for that.
benefit for you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see.
yeah.
Yours is actually cheaper the other way, John.
I know that's what Representative Dunnigan said the other day too, but
You still don't like it.
I still don't like.
What are we hearing on Vickers and the prior auth bill?
Oh, thanks. I talked to him yesterday on a different bill, but, so he has his clawback bill, he approved for numbering, so that should come out today. Unless you use Optum, you're probably, and there's model language that would be fine with. Prior auth, he said that Daniel, hasn't been able to get it out as quickly as he wanted. And so he says it's supposed to come out next week.
What bill is this?
This would be prior authorization on pharma. So it'd be a fight between us and the docs. I don't know how much, he says it's limited to pharma, but what does Optum have to do? Oh, on the clawback issue. So right now, most PBS, Optum doesn't allow, and if you have a drug and you have a lower cost, is Erin on the line? She may know. Okay. If you have a drug and you can get a lower cost than you're allowed, Optum requires you to, the pharmacy still has to dispense it at your higher allowed than if there's a lower cash price. And then they come back and they claw back the difference from the pharmacist. Most other PBMs do not act that way. I know CVS and Express and Prime don't do that. But this bill would prohibit that. So if there's a lower cost cash option, that the pharmacist can say, you're better off paying in cash, and it'll still apply to your deductible, but and then you avoid the whole clawback issue. So that's a bill that's supposed to come out today or Tuesday, and then the prior auth bill, he says it's based on Ohio. It took 3 years to pass in Ohio. I don't know what it's going to look like. He didn't give me any more details than that.
He's promised me that he'll include us at the table when we start to negotiate this, which is usually what happens with this.
Yeah, it's late for a bill that I think will be quite a fight, but
It is, and that's why I'm not too concerned that Daniel is overloaded.
So is he the same attorney handling the Guarantee Association bill?
Yeah, so his name's Daniel Chung. He just graduated from law school over the summer, last year. He's a really nice guy,
And very smart, very thorough.
Everything he does is getting reviewed by another attorney, and I've learned by Mark Andrews.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so,
By March.
so that's why all the health bills have been really slow this year coming out.
The Guarantee Association bill.
Because that was a priority bill at Dunnigan.
And that's complicated too.
I agree.
I wonder if that will be enough time to.
It's, you're right. I mean, what you need to pray for, John, is that the days delay.
The difference on that one, right, is that it's been discussed, right? In this prior off bill, no one from the medical association has sat down with anyone to talk about it yet. But I agree. It's a lot, it'll be a big lift if we can do it before the end of the session.
Do we know who Vickers is gonna use as a house manager?
For you too.
So, so originally this bill was gonna be run by Dan McKay, and then Dan McKay abandoned it, and the UMA then went to Vickers. Vickers has asked Kennedy to sponsor the bill. I don't know if, that was from the first week of the session when we heard about it, and I haven't checked back with Kennedy to ask if he's still planning to run this.
So Kennedy told me when we met with him, he says, I wanna know how you guys feel about this bill. He's the one that tipped us off, that the bill was being run because it was filed confidentially. He tipped us off. And so when we see the legislation, then we need to go back to Kennedy. He's got some reservations if we've got major concerns on it. I'm not saying he won't run it. I'm just saying, I think I would rather have somebody that's willing to listen to us, like Kennedy, than have someone that says, I agree to carry the bill and I'm not gonna change it unless you can get the sponsor to change it.
He's definitely the best dog for us to be working with in the House if it's him.
And I'll go back, based on this conversation we have today, Steve, I'll go back and still check with him again and see if he's still the sponsor. Okay?
Thanks again for all your hard work.
Yeah,
We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, Steve.
Both of you guys, thanks.
Don't forget to bring us back a gift from Colorado.
You want chewable?
Bring back a little can of gum.
I might miss more than Friday if I bring back a gift.
Figure out where, if I wanna try, where the next, this is the.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you all.
This is where this is?
Yeah, where this is, or where the
So,
hearing.
okay, so go to, bills. Up at the top,
Keith?
up at the top, the bills, yeah. And then, scroll down, where is the reading calendar, and there. And then go to,
Did you get something to eat, Russ?
Yeah, thank you.
Good, my friend. Are we,
And then click the
you,
plus. Yeah.
you need anything from us?
Plus sign.
Ah, it's really
Giving
hot.
you what you need?
Yeah.
And then
Great.
scroll down.
Okay, well, if you've got my number,
I was like,
you
wow,
can
that was
text me if there's
unexpected.
something that comes up. These guys do all the time, and let me know. I'm happy to address your concerns, to get right back to you. We'll try to also give you on the calendar. Okay, and then you're getting in and you're getting the updates that you need them, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to make sure we take care of our new members.
So there's 33 now.
You're taking
And
care of
they're
me well.
old members. Try to take care of the old
This is like
members too.
today, or when will they, oh,
Take care of everybody.
Not the last previous.
Previous
Oh,
time. Our veteran members, that makes it sound really.
Check the time certain,
that's what I'm
all of the
saying,
other
previous
matters.
Yeah,
There's no way
yeah.
to send everybody how to stay.
So yeah, it won't be until next week. And it'll be just in the gallery, so there won't be a huge, so this would be on the Senate floor.
Really good too.
So probably, if it's 33 down, I would say it's got 12 co-sponsors in the Senate, so it's where there's no point in the.
Almost all Democrats, but there's a few Republicans there. So that bill,
We'll get out of the Senate.
we're not gonna stop that bill.
but we haven't seen the amendment that says.
No,
We haven't seen
that won't come until the House, in my judgment. He's not gonna do that on the floor. He's gonna send it over to the House. And Steve's right on this. I don't know, did Steve tell you that behind Fillmore, I don't know what connection he has.
This is Senator Kingmore's bill.
Yeah,
right?
Senator
I mean,
King.
It's not actually, Lincoln.
Representative
Not-
King is
cannot
behind.
It's Brian King.
Brian King is going like this.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's- Yeah.
That much I did.
He won't meet, Fillmore will not need to talk about this bill without Brian King there. That's how little he knows about it, is he will,
Why did he agree to take it?
so King has done this, right, he did the same thing with Jake Andrick a couple of years ago. He tells these horror stories of, denied benefits, either on like an accidental death or on the health side, what it normally is, it's here's a kid who we said we wouldn't pay for, wilderness treatment or inpatient, substance abuse, but we would do, intensive outpatient. And, he ended up overdosing and, so pull out these horror stories where we, sent him to something that was clinically appropriate, but not the treatment that the parents thought should happen. And, some of these guys, those stories, they buy off us.
Well, not only that, then when you go into committee,